a term we often use on the show. In fact, I think every show, probably someone mentions it at least once. That is termination for cause. And all you need to know about that topic is what we're going to talk about.
Termination for cause is a terrible situation to be in. If your employment supposedly is terminated for cause, that means the company is saying you did something so bad, then they can let you go without severance. So that's bad enough. But how do you explain that to a prospective employer when you're looking for a job? First question they're going to ask you is, why aren't you with the previous company? Oh, they let me go for cause. Done. You'll not get a job. So we want to talk about what cause is, because in most cases, John, when people are let go for cause, there isn't cause. In fact, they've been wrongfully dismissed.
Well, that's the first question, a deeper definition. What is termination for cause?
Termination for cause happens when an employee is guilty of very significant misconduct, where that misconduct is repeated and where the company has done everything they can to fix the problem, but they've failed. Okay, so it's reserved for the worst offenders. It's the punishment for the worst offenders. The problem is most employers jump the gun. It's not a question of whether you did something wrong. It's a question of whatever it is that you did rises all the way to the level of cause. So because of that, I wanted to understand, you may have done something wrong. It does not mean you can be terminated for cause.
Okay, rise to the level. So the next question naturally would be, how hard is it to establish termination for cause?
It is difficult because again, it's reserved for the worst offender. The company really has to build up its case. Number one, it has to prove that the employee did it. Number two, it has to prove that it was a big deal. But also number three, it has to show that there was no other possibility other than termination. So in other words, they have to show, we've warned this person before, we've warned them again, maybe we've even suspended them. What more can we do now? Nothing. So the only option is termination for cause. Most employers, in my experience, jump the queue. So they go from 0 to 100, from 0 to a termination for cause with nothing in between. That is improper, and again, that's a wrongful dismissal.
You know, we often talk about on the show that, you know, people or someone has a job and they're doing it out of malice. They're not doing it because they mean to. They just don't happen to be very good at the job. They make numerous mistakes, and eventually their employer says, that's cause. You keep messing up and I'm getting rid of you.
It is very difficult to terminate someone for cause, let's say for performance reasons. You would have to show that the employee essentially went out of their way to do a bad job. That's not true for most people. If you do your best, even if things don't work out, it does not mean you could be let go for cause.
So you have two employees. One's a 5-year guy, other's a 20-year guy or girl, and they both apparently get let go for termination for cause. Is there a difference? Does it make a difference how long you've been working for the company?
Well, the longer you work, the more difficult it is to be terminated for cause, because if you've been there for 25 years, presumably you've been there because you've been able to demonstrate you're a good employee. So to show that this good employee all of a sudden becomes so bad they can be let go for cause, you'd have to really, really be able to show as the employer that something awful happened. So it is always difficult to terminate for cause. It's that much more difficult to terminate for cause long service employees.
The next question would be, how many, so-called chances does an employee get before they can be let go for cause?
It really does depend on the offense. As a general rule, I would say 3. So you have 3 forms of discipline before you could be terminated for cause. So maybe a couple suspension or a couple warnings and a suspension, 3 warnings. Now, the more serious the misconduct, the less warnings that employer has to give you. The less serious, the more warnings. But as a general rule, if you've been let go for cause and you haven't been warned in the past, maybe 2-3 times, again, probably a wrongful dismissal.
These warnings have to be in writing, or should they be in writing?
They really should. It's very difficult to warn someone if it's not in writing. My rule, John, if it's not in writing, it doesn't exist.
Termination for cause, all you need to know. That's what we're talking about for the remainder of this segment of the show here. Do you get severance if you're fired for cause? Is there a possibility to get any severance?
Well, if you're legitimately let go for cause, then no, you won't get severance. But again, most people are not properly let go for cause. Most people, when they're let go supposedly for cause, it's really a without cause termination, which means they get full severance. So it could be the difference between getting nothing and getting as much as 2 years' pay. That's why it's so important to get some advice if you're let go anytime. But certainly if you're let go for cause. So
if we were to put on our employer hats now, how do you build a case, so to speak, to terminate someone eventually for cause? How do you do it?
You document. You document. So if the employee does something that's improper, document that, put that in writing to the employee, give them a warning, and do that every time the employee does something wrong. And at some point, you're going to look at your file and say, well, now I have the goods, I have the information that I need to let the person go for cause. You have to put in that work. If you don't, you're not going to be able to let someone go for cause.